right.
Who would think?
No, that's right. Soul of an Octopus is the book we read for the month of July, talking about cephalopods, which are brain foot.
I just know how to say that word.
Brain foot.
Uh-huh.
So their feet are.
Cephalopod?
Yeah, like cephala, right? Is brain.
Oh,
We didn't talk about it, but the untalked about book of June was Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. Those are gastropods, which are stomach foots. So whether you have a stomach in your foot or a brain in your foot.
But they're all mollusks.
Yes,
right? Which is
they're
one of the
mollusks.
things that she said.
It's a mollusk summer in the purple.
Right. So we can talk mainly about Soul of an Octopus. I think most of us have read that. But we can also tie in snails and other weird slug-like organisms as we talk. The first thing, which it starts off the bat, is the plural of octopus is octopuses, not octopi.
Doesn't even sound right.
Because it's, I can't remember if it's Greek or Latin, but words that have, I think it's Latin origin, do not use the I.
Oh no, it turns out you
I
can't put a Latin ending I on a word derived from Greek, such as octopus.
Right. So octopus is Greek, so you can't end it with I, because it's Latin. Who made that rule? I don't know.
That sounds completely wrong.
But Kylie, my wife, who is an English teacher, was fascinated by that comment.
Makes me wonder what other words we're pronouncing incorrectly. You know, is hippopotamus really hippopotami?
Hippopotamus.
That's a good question. I do know, speaking of plurals, plural of fish depends. So plural of multiple fish of the same species is fish. Multiple species of fish, like it's a school of fish because it's one species. But the fishes at a reef, they're multiple species. It's fishes.
Whoa.
Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea.
Right.
Joy to you and me.
Thanks, 3 Dot. And bullfrogs.
Wow. All right. Wow. Okay.
There you go. So that's more.
So is that the same thing with deer?
Look at all them deers.
It's like, oh look, there's some mule deer and some white. Look at the deers.
Look at the deers. I don't. That one I don't know. Or are they just deer?
When it's more than one species.
When it's more species.
Yeah.
Right.
Or mooses are mooses. You see multiple types of species of
there
mooses.
Multiple species of moose?
I think so.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I know there
we are
species of deer.
We've only made it 5 minutes, and now we're way outside of our expertise, and we're just talking out of our gastrofoots.
Oh
boy. But yeah, that was kind of the first.
So many fascinating things in this book.
But so there's this book, Soul of an Octopus, is kind of misleading because there's multiple octopuses in the book as they write and talk about different ones. Most of the octopuses that I believe it's a female.
It is.
That she talks about come from the Boston Aquarium, but she also mentions the Seattle Aquarium, because most of the octopuses in these aquariums are Pacific octopuses, so from the Pacific Northwest, which are the typical large, mainly red ones that people are.
Which I thought was fascinating also, that there weren't, it didn't sound like there were a lot of, there either aren't octopuses in the North Atlantic around Boston?
Yeah, I guess not.
Or, I mean, I guess they are in the Atlantic, right? Because she goes to France at one point, right?
No.
Oh no, it's French Polynesia. That's right.
French Polynesia.
So maybe there aren't any octopuses in the Atlantic at all.
Because they were like Tahitian, which is close to Tahiti.
Yeah, that's right. I was confused for the first page and a half of that. I was like,
it mentions, because the only reference it mentions is one's occupied by France, which colonialism.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's Pacific too. So can you find an octopus in the Atlantic at all?
Well, where did she?
Good question. I don't know.
I would say you can, but.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay. Still questions, even after 256 pages. I still have questions.
So, yeah, so the book is mainly about her and her experience with, there was 5 maybe different octopuses, and there was
Yeah,
maybe
let's see.
7 different people that she kind of interacted with closely.
Right,
and
right.
That,
Athena, Octavia, Kali, Karma. And I guess in the first, like half of the first chapter, she talks about a couple of other male.
yeah,
George and
Yes.
Truman.
Right.
Truman, yeah,
Right.
that's right. Not a ton of.
and then they bring in
Stories,
for the date night. They bring in Squirt and crap, I can't remember the male.
Have you gotten
octopus's
that
name.
far?
Yes, I've just
Date
finished
night.
that, in
That was
fact.
the weirdest thing.
Rain.
Rain.
Squirt and
Thank
rain.
you. Yes,
I'm like,
yes.
why are all these elementary school field trips coming to see octopus mating session?
Do they just talk about them dancing, and that's,
Yeah, well,
that's as far as it goes?
right,
and we're like,
right.
we're not gonna.
Blind date.
Because it
It's
says
just
that
so
one.
weird.
Because it says the one, they're like, most of these kids, human reproduction
Right,
are,
that's
are
right.
completely foreign to them, let alone how
I mean,
octopuses
these are like,
age.
they're like, the kids crisscross applesauce, right? This is the level of these children, right? These aren't even like middle schoolers, and
Right.
it's some,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
that was just weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah. People of all ages. Well, she talks about the kids leaving early.
Yeah, that's true. They
And
just
then
were there for like
the
half an
adults
hour,
hang-
and then they left.
Right.
It's like, what's happening?
And then the one guy goes, "This is where they're having the cigarette." That was
funny.
because they hang out. Well, the main thing lasts like, I don't know, 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
like the whole
But then
the
like
whole
the,
Like
quote
5 hour.
unquote dance is
Right.
like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
5-hour
right.
long,
Right.
and then they
Right.
chase each other.
chasing and
Around the corner. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
Did you all have I had a hard time, I think, figuring out the scale of the tanks. It was hard, like when I was imagining, okay, this bucket, what are we talking here? Are we
I
talking
think
like
so. There's pictures. So
I
the
was looking for
bucket.
pictures of some of those. Was
the
there a picture of the bucket?
There's a bucket one, and I think so.
Like in this one, it still doesn't tell me a scale of how big this bucket is.
No.
I think it's like a 50-gallon drum.
Yes, it was a 50-gallon drum that Collie is in.
So 50 gallons, so that's like a rain barrel
I
size.
would
Yes.
guess that's
Okay.
right.
So this
Yeah.
is a
And
this
then
is a pretty big octopus then for a rain barrel.
yeah,
right?
it starts to get
That's
big.
why it
right?
got too
And that's
big,
where they
right,
got-
exactly.
She was
Yeah.
small,
Um,
when they got her, but then,
Uh-huh.
and then she was, it felt like she was imprisoned eventually.
Yeah, I got way too
That
small,
sounded
yeah. She was
horrible.
like trying to chew out and stuff.
Yeah.
So let's see. So if you read not the acknowledgements, I didn't read that. Sorry. The postscript says
Oh.
that they eventually moved.
Yeah, I did see
They
that.
moved them. So I
They had a
think
2-part tank, right?
Oh, okay.
Eventually.
so. So the first one, the tank where Athena, Octavia, Karma lived, was 560 gallons, and it says it was the size of the old tank roughly the size of a VW Beetle. That's
Okay.
560 gallons.
Okay.
And then they built the 6,000 gallon tank that was kind of like able to be 2 separate areas in apartments, was 6,000 gallons, and they said is more the size of a truck.
Mm.
All right. So even the big tank was like, VW Bug is like from me to Susan, right? That's not a huge.
It's about, yeah, I mean, it's, yeah.
It's probably.
Okay. So even the big
Not
tank
right.
wasn't huge, right?
No.
But
It's
the
Yeah.
truck, we're talking. I got you. Okay.
6,000 gallons.
Yes. Yeah.
A truck, yeah. So that's roughly that.
Okay.
And the one that Collie escaped from
Uh-huh.
and then died, I think that one was like 90 gallons.
Oh, right.
But
That's
it was
right.
the Barrel.
Yeah. It was
Right.
a bigger tank.
Right,
that
it was
they-
kind of it's kind of something in between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fascinating too, how these pretty big sized
Gosh,
creatures get through these tiny little holes, like pour
Right, they
themselves
just-
through
The
like,
only, yeah,
Whoa,
it's,
yeah.
like
so,
Mr. Elastic or something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's no bones except for their beak,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
as long as their beak can fit through
Yeah,
it, they can fit through it.
That's fascinating.
Mind-boggling.
And that they would
Yeah.
just like come out of a tank and like walk around on the floor. right?
Right, oh, that whole section on escape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
That was in that first chapter, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, page 16. Boring your octopus is not only cruel, it's a hazard.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another danger of boredom is that your octopus may try to go someplace more interesting.
Uh-huh.
The one that ended up hiding in a teapot, the one that crawled down the stairs at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, and then this was so sad. Pushed on one that was in the small private aquarium in Bermuda, pushed the lid off its tank, crawled off the veranda and headed home to the sea.
Oh, right.
But it collapsed on the lawn and then the ants got it.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
that was sad. Oh,
So sad.
yeah. Huh.
I didn't realize that they were so good at puzzles, like unscrewing things and opening things.
Yeah, that's what the intelligence, well, that's kind of what we were talking earlier about what's the PBS one? I don't remember the name of the PBS one, or the Octopus Teacher that we watched together, Yeah, but yeah, just to understand. Well, the other book that I kept coming back to again and again, I don't know if you all read this one, but this has been a couple years ago that we read, Are We Smart Enough to Know How Smart
Yes.
Animals Really Are?
Right.
Did you read that one? Did you read that one, Matthew?
I read,
would like to.
I think I did. I read some of it.
Yeah, I think I've got that one in my office. Susan, you can borrow that one, because it's kind of that same idea of you know, there's a chapter or a section here that talked about, you know, if an octopus would look at us, they would think, what a dumb creature, right? Because they can't even feel with their appendages, right? They don't have the intelligence of us higher animals, and I think that's kind of the thesis of that book, is the assumption that, you know, we don't even know what we're measuring here in terms of intelligence. And so when we start to get these experiences, an octopus isn't just a slimy, you know, mud pit. It's an actual intelligent animal that's and affectionate, and, you know, able to kind of build relationships with humans. That's where it really kind of hit its own.
That reminds me, it struck me that she uses to refer to the creatures, she says who, not that.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't notice.
Page 16 is the first time I noticed that.
That's interesting.
But she does it throughout.
Right. Well, and there's the section in there, I remember, where the scientists were supposed to refer to the animals by number.
Oh, yes.
And
yes,
yet
and
immediately they started using names.
Yeah.
Right? They started to, you know,
Yeah.
they couldn't do it.
The experiments went awry because the octopus, they would outwit them.
That's right.
Yeah, do things that they weren't expecting.
Yeah, well, because I remember when we had that conversation about that book too, then, I mean, it's like, how do we deal that in kind of theological terms, right? We think about, you know, what is the assumption that, you know, Psalm 8, right? I mean, made humans a little lower than the angels, right? And okay, so we have the place up here and all these other animals down here. And, you know, the more we learn about God's creatures, the more we say, okay, maybe there is a different way that we can talk about relationships or intelligence, or, you know, some of these different concepts.
Right. We think we know more than we really do, and who knows how God can like commune with these other creatures. I mean, it blew my mind to read that each arm may have its own brain.
Right, yeah.
Like its own, it functions on its own.
Yeah, well, brain foot, right? I mean, back to your comment.
That's
Yeah, that's fascinating, right? To begin to understand what animals know.
Do the other arms know that the one arm has been cut off, and how do they compensate for that? Or does one arm have an attitude and they get angry at the arm and get rid of it?
Yeah, or at least it's very different. Well, the thing that caught my eye was, okay, we're right-handed or we're left-handed, right? And so our hands can do different things depending on our dominance. and they have 8 of them, right? And so they each have, these 3 are good for catching food, and these 3 are good for, moving, and these 2 or whatever, and so that's the similarity to that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
Oh.
And that it's like they don't have our focus issues, like we get distracted but they can be doing something with 2 of their legs and, 3 of the other legs are doing something else entirely and they're just fine.
Right. Oh yeah, the
Got it all
story.
under control.
Who was it? Was it?
There were like
Collie?
6 of them watching them or
That's
8
right.
of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And she gave one tentacle to this person and another to this person, and it's like all of these people were in rapture, and then all of a sudden with these other 2, she grabbed the food bucket and takes it and puts it in the right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought I bookmarked it, and it was a Jacques Cousteau quote
Yeah.
regarding the soul.
Oh. Is it near the end?
I thought so. So I have one nice.
Is it the section where the Octopus Church? She talks about the Octopus Church.
Yeah, I have that.
That was fascinating to me. Have you gotten that far, Susan?
I think that must be.
It's pretty close to the
last
end. Yeah.
section. There was, after you find that, Matthew, there was, I can find this one.
Maybe if I.
Oh, yeah. Can I talk about this one while you look?
Yeah, go ahead.
So page 148, Jacques Cousteau is also involved in this one, where she talks about when they're scuba diving and they performed the giant stride, which sounds stately and accomplished. But doing it, even Jacques Cousteau looked like he just left Monty Python's Mystery of Silly Bucks.
Right.
Yeah.
But transform from when you step off, you transform from a shambling monster into being of weightless grace.
Yeah.
2:11. Man,
When did you find it?
2:11?
I think so. Let me double check that.
Yeah, this is the chapter where she talks about consciousness, the thing to be able to know.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't a Cousteau quote.
The line that I noticed, that was not a quote, but was from her, 227. This is kind of the section where she talks about the Octopus Church. Just a short point on that, Susan. Basically, it's a Protestant church, and I looked it up. And it's still a thing. It was like formed by
It's a real church?
Oh yeah,
It's not just a figure of
No,
speech.
it's in this French Polynesian place where she went,
Wow.
because there are all these octopuses all around, and so when English or European Protestants came as missionaries, they came in and formed this church, and because this was kind of the culture that's around it, they created this 8-sided church, little chapel on this mountain that they imagined kind of looked like an octopus, and it still exists. It still worships. And she was, she says the service is conducted in the Tahitian language. I don't understand, but I understand the power of worship, the importance of contemplating mystery, whether in a church or diving a coral reef. The mystery that congregants seek here is no different, really, from the one I've sought in my interactions with Athena and Kali, Karma and Octavia. It's no different from the mystery we pursue in all our relationships, all our deepest wanderings. We seek to fathom the soul, but what is the soul? Some say it is the self, the I that inhabits the body. Without the soul, the body is like a light bulb with no electricity. But it is more than the engine of life, say others. It is what gives meaning and purpose. Soul is the fingerprint of God.
Yeah, I had the I have that
Yeah,
bookmarked.
wow.
And then she goes on, there's more good stuff in there, but that line really, you know, and again, I think this is somebody, she doesn't talk in, you know, overtly religious terms. I mean, despite the fact that soul being in the title, right?
Right,
She doesn't talk about Jesus and, you know, the church a lot. And,
She does weave some of that in though, not just from the Christian faith, but some Buddhism and some Hindu.
Yeah.
But it sounds like she grew up Methodist, I read.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, where did I see that?
Yeah, I can't remember where, but it does mention that.
Yeah. But I think there's that sensitivity, you know, it does make sense, right? Somebody kind of raised in the church and raised in the faith kind of has this sensitivity and then opens to say, you know, God is bigger than just what I've seen, you know, in this space, right? And we hope that we do the same thing here when we talk about wonder, right? We want to say that this is not the only place you experience God, but maybe it can become a place where we can teach people to see God in all of these octopuses and trees and God's creation.
Right. Maybe God exists beyond our consciousness.
Right, yeah, you would hope.
Yeah.
You would hope that it's not just inside of our little minds. Yeah.
Well, and so many things. One of them was, so it does talk early on in the Athena chapter about, you know, it does disprove Rene Descartes, right? His thing of like, I think, therefore I am, which me, before I read this, thought it just means like I can think and that makes me a person, but his thing behind that is only people who can think, which are only humans, are the only thing that like matter and exist.
Right.
And then like now it's like, and then Jane Goodall, actually it says here, one of the most widely recognized scientists in the world was too intimidated to publish some of her most intriguing observations of wild chimpanzees for 20 years. From her extensive studies at Gombe Stream Reserve in Tanzania, she had many times observed wild chimpanzees purposefully deceiving one another, for example, stifling of food to keep others from discovering some fruit. Anyway, it goes on this thing of like, she hid some of it, fearing, in the 70s, fearing her scientific colleagues would never believe them. There's always an effort to minimize emotion and intelligence in other species, the New England Aquarium Director of Public Relations said.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that reminded me of that. Are we smart enough to realize how smart animals are? Because it's a lot of chimp studies and a lot of kind of that. It's like scientists are like, this is like Mickey Mouse stuff because it can't be real.
Well, but I think the other thing is like we have an ego about it, and it's like, oh, if these things are smarter than we are, it makes us more dumb.
Right.
Which that's a fallacy.
Right.
But that's what they think. If we're not as smart as we think we are.
Yeah. Right.
It's kind of humbling.
Humility, yeah.
But also, it's like that doesn't make you dumber. It just makes them smarter. Like
Right.
why do you have to think you have to be that much better than everyone else?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Dominance.
I think of the Pharisees, right? That told Jesus, well, tell your people to be quiet, right? And Jesus says, well, if they do, even the rocks will cry, right?
Yeah.
You know, the rocks have figured this stuff out. By the way, y'all are dumber than the rocks, but
You are
literally dumber than the rocks.
than a box of rocks.
And so, you know, my disciples are starting to get this, but they're not the only ones, right? I guess that's my point, right? They're not the only ones. All of God's creatures in creation figure at some level to worship their creator, the thing that they do, right? And their chimpanzee-ness, and their octopusness, and their rockness, they are worshiping in a way.
Being what they were created to be.
Sure, right.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is. It's one of the mystics or Merton or someone says something like a tree worships God by just being a tree.
Being a tree, yeah, right. Yeah.
Maybe, right? And it's the idea of maybe, going back to the fall of man, right? Like, we stopped being human when we started trying to think too much about how to be something. It was like, no, just be a human. Like, you don't need the knowledge that you're like, and then we get into self-awareness, but like, you're thinking too much about how to be something we're not.
Right.
Well, and to need to dominate, you don't need to dominate over all in order to be valuable and be what God created.
Right. Yeah, even the way we translate some of the Eden passages, right? I mean, it definitely, the Greek or the Hebrew implies much more of a, this is just this is humanity living in community with all of these creatures. And some of the translations are, dominates and control, and you go back and look, it's not really what it says. It is more about, living in some level of harmony, which was God's intention from the beginning. And yet we all of us, right? Not just Genesis 3, but all of us take our turn at doing the same, missing the point.
Yeah, well, and here, page 144, the desire to change our ordinary, everyday consciousness does not seize everyone, but it's a persistent theme in human culture. Expanding the mind beyond the self allows us to relieve our loneliness, to connect with what Jung called universal consciousness, the original inherited shape shared with all minds, unites us with what Plato called animus mundi, the all-extensive world soul shared by all of life. I mean, and it doesn't use the word God, but this shared soul, oh yeah, like everything, and that's it's close to.
Well, and I think the ways in which she's also a phenomenal writer, right? I was struck by kind of basically the whole book's about her volunteering at an aquarium, right? I mean, but the drama and the relationship and the way she weaves in her grief over losing a friend, an animal, right, along with this aquarium worker whose wife is in hospice, and some of the way she kind of weaves all these ideas together about what an older octopus will do in its final days, and what we do, with our it just was so beautifully written.
Drawing those parallels,
and it kind of helped kind of expose some of that arrogance to say, well, those animals aren't anything like us, and there's all these connections, all these deep relationships that they reach out and are curious about us in the same way that we want to learn more about them.
The next page, you read off 144, but on 146, I love the phrase, daily I am drunk with strange splendors. That was a neat turn of phrase. And the page before it, where she was scuba diving, and she says, my breath rising in silver bubbles like a song of praise. Yeah, she definitely has a way of words.
Where's the line about splendor? You said 146?
45, I think.
145.
Yeah, 145.
Oh, yeah. I could relate, right? When I think about
right, running on the trail.
Yeah, that's right.
And I go back and look at pictures they've taken and think, wow. And you run the same trail sometimes and see different things every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are pretty strange splendors.
Yeah. I don't know about you all, but I still am not like, I'm gonna start learning to scuba dive. And that's still.
I've scuba dived once.
Have you? Yeah.
Mhm. It was in a swimming pool, but
Yeah.
still pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, when we were down in Biennial in Puerto Rico, there were some families
Oh, I'm
that went
sure
down there that they'll do a snorkeling or scuba diving or something like that, right? It's still, and I guess the splendors that I'm drawn to are not underwater.
Underwater.
In general, I don't know what it is. I mean, this is fascinating to me, but it just doesn't. I'm not. We're gonna go, sell my house and buy a boat and go live in the ocean now.
Lauren and I snorkeled in Cancun when she and I went together.
Oh, yeah.
And it was pretty cool. I am not a fish in water by any means either, but it was neat to see the brightly colored fish and, that kind of stuff.
Yes. Going back to Chicago multiple times in multiple years, we did a lot of museums when the family would come up, but we never. I think they went to Shed Aquarium one time, and I was like, "That's good. I'm glad you're going to see the fish. I don't need to go
Shed
do that."
Aquarium.
Yeah. I'd rather go to the planetarium next door or the Field Museum with the dinosaurs or something like that, right? And it is fascinating to learn. I assume you all figured out the little flip book on the corner, right?
Yes.
Did you see this?
I love that.
Yeah.
I was so glad I got the book this time.
I know, that's right. I thought about you because you sometimes just say, wait, you guys got pictures. I have the digital version. There's no pictures. I was like, you're really gonna be mad if you missed the little flip book of the octopus.
Yeah, that was a cool idea.
I do like the pictures too. I think that
the glossy pictures.
That does help some. Again, there's some that was like, I want to see a picture of what this looks like. And I flipped there, I was like, oh no, you're not showing me. I want to see it.
Yep. The sunflower sea star. I was glad that there's a picture of that in there.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Is that the one that kept kind of creeping over whenever the octopus was like?
And she would like.
And every time she would say, and it doesn't have a brain. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, but
how does it function?
Yeah, I don't.
And there's a quote on page 115. Hormones and neurotransmitters, the chemicals associated with human desire, fear, love, joy, and sadness, are highly conserved across taxa, Jennifer said. This means that whether you're a person or a monkey, bird or turtle, an octopus or a clam, the physiological changes that accompany our deepest felt emotions appear to be the same. Even a brainless scallop's little heart beats faster when the mollusk is approached by a predator, just like yours and mine would do were we to be accosted by a mugger, excuse me, not a muggler.
You're thinking of muggles.
Yeah.
That's right, a dementor. When we were accosted by a dementor, our heart beats faster. I even loved, I mean, it's like, again, a lot of it wasn't out in the wild Jacques Cousteau stuff, but it's a Boston aquarium. But I thought that was fascinating to see the different ways that people interacted with the animals. I remember I took a summer course when I was in high school or college or something about cultural anthropology, and we had a homework assignment to go to the zoo and not look at the animals, but look at the people watching the animals.
Oh yeah.
And see what their experiences, what they noticed and what they said, and so you had to see all these people looking that way. All of us that are, we were watching.
You were watching them and what they're looking at.
That's right.
Well, right, and she made the point at the beginning about Western culture and how it, sees octopus from, historically.
That's right,
We have feared octopus.
Yeah, and giant squid and,
right,
the sea. And,
written up in the literature like H.G. Wells and that culturally we've been taught to fear them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's several points where it talks about, like, she's hearing people talk about, oh, that's disgusting, what is this? And then she explains what's going on, and they're like, then people completely change.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, one of them's like, a couple of, teenage girls or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, once they can relate to it, like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a mother,
Right,
it's young,
right.
it's like, they're just enamored by all these things that are the same.
Yeah. I was struck by that too, just kind of this idea that when they began to identify, it was, okay, it's not just a gross fish that looks icky, but, oh, wow, she's a mother taking care of her eggs.
Yeah.
Right, and over it was like people would say, ooh, that's gross, or,
Yeah.
And she would redirect them.
Right, yeah.
On 105, kind of the middle of the page, there was a paragraph about where she and Anna and Krista were just walking through the aquarium, roaming like girls window shopping downtown. But to us, each tank is more like a station of the cross, site for a series of devotions. Here we are sanctified, baptized over and over, but the beauty and strangeness of the ocean.
Yeah, she did definitely use a lot of kind of religious language. I'll talk about. The theology that kept coming to mind to me was little I incarnation, right? Kind of this incarnational God is in, what's around us, right? And so we see in the daily practice of life, we see God at work, like Brother Lawrence or whatever. And she then sees these kind of daily experiences, weekly experiences. Her Octopus Wednesday, she'd come.
All right, Wonderful Wednesdays.
Wonderful Wednesday, that's right.
Which reminded me of our former kids program.
Wild Wednesdays or whatever it was, yeah. And that's, for her then, that's in God's creation here, these examples of God incarnate, God alive and in these creatures.
I think the other thing I learned more was, talks about karma. Oh, well, so, I don't know, I don't want to spoil the book. Yeah. So, Kali, which is a young octopus, so once they realize that octopus hatches its eggs, they realize that it's going to die soon. Right. So one of them started hatching eggs, so they bought a new young octopus, Kali, and it was in a small tank, and then we were talking about this earlier, they put it in a semi-larger, or a larger tank, and it was super happy, and then the next morning they found it outside and it died. So the new octopus they got, they named it Karma, because they're like, this is a great octopus that we wouldn't have gotten if the other one would, which is I think a very mature thing to look at and see. Like a lot of people don't see that. But it talks about karma, page 190, the idea that it says in casual Western conversation, karma is used interchangeably with destiny, kismet, luck, fate. Bill had chosen the name while still in grip of what felt to us like a star-crossed tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. During the Elizabethan era, most Europeans believed such a person's fate was predetermined, hardwired by the positions of planets and stars. Some people still do. But the idea of karma is a deeper, more promising meaning than that of fate. Karma can help us develop wisdom and compassion. In Hinduism, karma is a path to reaching the state of Brahman, the highest God, the universal self, the world's soul. Our karma is something over which, unlike fate, we do have control. Volition is karma, the Buddha is reported to have said. Karma in Hindu and Buddhist traditions is a conscious action. Karma is not fate, but in fact its opposite. Karma is choice.
Which I think there's all kinds of examples in scripture, right? I mean, there's so much of that that feels
Yeah.
feels a lot of what Jesus talked about, right? Take up your cross, and kind of this where other people would say this is kind of the who sinned? This matters, parents, right? Jesus had a very very much engaged, again, incarnational translation of life. Even the fact that we talk about lowercase incarnation, but the uppercase incarnation is the fact that Jesus came to this earth, right? As opposed to being far and separate and away from everybody. God said, nope, the way that I want to engage with the world is this guy, right? This the presence of my son in this way. Which I see overlapping with a lot of what that theology is too, right? This kind of engagement with action, right? That's what Jesus came to say, is the way we live matters, right? The moral law, the law of love, conscious action matters.
And so to point into the sound of wild snail, so it's an interesting book. It's not as like scientific and nature based, but it's basically this kind of memoir of this lady. She attracted some sort of bacteria or a virus, and she's like bedridden and she doesn't go into her exact symptoms, other than she can't. I think she gets extreme vertigo. She can't, or she's very weak, or both. Anyway, it's kind of nice because it's beside the point. But like somehow a friend brings in her a plant has snail in it. So like she kind of gets through this, like she still has it, like bouts of this thing, whatever it is. But like there's this one little time that this snail, she just watched the snail like on her bedside and watched it eat and live, and she said like you could hear it chewing.
Wow.
But like, yeah, I mean, she, like this connection that she had with this snail by watching it and figuring out what its favorite foods are and where is it going, and it's and then eventually it lays eggs, like somehow and it hatched, and so she has like thousands of these little snails. So she has a friend like let them go, and so what she did was then she kept one of them and then let the parent snail go. And then she kind of kept this other snail for a little bit. But it's this similar thing of like,
I did, yeah.
But it's a very interesting story of just her and her, like this little moment that she had. I can't remember how long, it was a year or a summer really, and she just kind of spent bedridden. She couldn't move, but like she felt solace with this other animal that's like, I don't have anybody else. This animal, and like this animal can live. It was very introspective. And it's actually cited.
Oh, really?
In this book, so selected bibliography. The very first book is The Sound of Wild Snail Eating.
Wow.
I mean, it does get into some deep stuff about snails and like they can eat through there's a foot stomach. Like sometimes they can and drink. Like they'll just sit in their water and drink through their skin like a frog. But just they've got it's pretty fascinating.
I was fascinated by the format that she chose for the book, because I was talking about when she was so ill, she would try to read books, but they were so heavy that she couldn't pick them up, and it exhausted her. And I found it interesting that she chose such a nice, thin little book.
Snail-sized book.
And not overwhelming.
Cool.
And it's, I don't know, both of these books are relatively short, but contain a lot of information. It's like, it's very refreshing to read small novels. Beside the point, like Kylie and I just watched a movie called Living with Bill Nighy. say.
Oh,
I think. We also watched another one with him just having it's in the British film, The Bookshop. But like, it's this idea of like, maybe it's just a British thing. Because they only have like, their TV shows are only like a season or two, right?
Oh, right.
And it's like, they know how to tell a story and know when to end it.
Yeah.
Instead of like these super long American TV shows that last seasons and seasons, like, oh, it's just trying to make money, or, you know, blockbuster films that are like 3 hours. It's like, it's good to like watch these movies are like 90 minutes long. They tell a story. It doesn't seem like it's like when you think about it, it's gonna end. It ends. Right, like these ones. Right, it's not like okay, like it ends and then there's like 3 more chapters of stuff. It's like it's good when you read someone who knows how to write a good story.
Write a good story. That's right.
Right, you write a story with the end in mind. And it's,
Right. And end it when it's done.
Right.
You know,
Right.
don't try to produce more fluff.
As opposed to
keep it going.
Here's a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene, so you'll watch the next one.
Right.
You know, that's right.
I mean, I don't know. There's Lord of the Rings is great, right? I'm not but like
But even
there's
that,
something.
There's an ending to that.
well, that's right. I would argue that you know, and we're getting way off the topic, right? But the first 3 movies was, you know, these are really big books, and so we're gonna have some pretty weighty 3 movies. And then they said, well, here's a really short book in The Hobbit. Let's make 3 really weighty movies, right? It's like, no, make it short, clean, you know. Do the same thing you did with this one, right? You don't have to do 3 long movies about every word that, you know, ever was told in this one book.
Which is like, I mean, so, I mean, you read this and it's like, it's definitely a woman writing this. In a good way. Like, she, like, for some, like, it's not this overt, you know, bombastic, like, sometimes, I don't know, like. You wrote a lot, but you didn't say much.
You read?
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
what was the last one we read about the guy who teaches people how to go out?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yes, that guy.
It definitely felt like a guy.
Because his book was like twice this thing.
All combined.
And it's like, this one's just so, both of these authors, they just wrote so deliberately and thoughtfully that it's like, here's what I need to say. And it's like, these other people like could have wrote the same thing in a paragraph and they did it in one sentence.
Why don't I just read
like, let's
88 chapters on how to tell which direction is north? I mean,
well, and it's like,
pull out my compass and
it's like, well, that's the idea of like, this could be.
I mean, that was a fascinating book for other reasons. However, I hear what you're saying.
It's like, but like, you can make that a chart. Find north by and you can do bullet points and make it into like a couple pages, and it's easy to read and find and stuff. And it's a field guide versus you trying to narrate how that works, or it's like with pictures. Right. That's like know your format and know what you're trying to do.
Right.
Then do it like that, but don't try to like narrate something that needs to be in a chart or both.
Okay, so now drum roll. What's next? What are we next?
I knew. Keep talking, and then I will.
Right. I mean, so the question is this going to be the guy with 387 pictures or pages on how to tell which way is north, or is it going to be a nice
little concise
book about a snail eating? Now I need to go back and read that one.
Deckled edges.
Yes. Or the flip book, right?
Right. Oh,
there's a flip book here.
Oh, that is just so brilliant. I loved it.
Oh my goodness. Let's see.
I had I don't know if I got the used copy or what it was, but there's like little marks, like little ink marks on some pages.
There was one on mine too.
Well, so I spent much more time than I should have trying to discern the ink spots. After the little, the flip, I go, oh, is that a little baby octopus? Maybe it's a little. Hey, let me look for another one. And I look 7 pages later. I don't think that's anything. So it's just a little ink spot there, and I just wasted 7 minutes of my life. Or even the little. Did you notice the little picture,
the little
separator? But I was like, does that have 8 legs?
I think it does.
No, I don't think it does. I think it just has 5.
Oh, it has 5.
It just has 5.
It has 5.
But I wondered about, I spent another 7 minutes thinking about, If you can make an 8-sided thing that small, that you can discern all the different legs. Do you have it? I've got it here if you don't.
Oh yeah, please pull it up because the copy I'm finding is old.
Okay.
No, this one didn't have ink spots. There was just one little.
Okay, what I have is coming soon to a purple team near you. So August is, we've got another back-to-back, right? August into September. So read a book and comment on it. And then September is when we'll get back together. So the read a book for August is Care of Creation, Christian Voices on God, Humanity, and the Environment by Joseph Colson.
Yes.
Followed up by the September last Wednesday book study, For the Beauty of the Earth, a Christian Vision for Creation Care by Stephen Bouma Prediger.
Yes. So one of those books, I think it's the first one, was from the list that you sent me.
Okay.
But the next couple books, so we had a couple of people make comments that like we want to get more Bible focused, scripture focused. So again, so these books are more, bringing in more of that more specific Christianity.
Like clearly theological, right? I mean, I think that's one thing that we've noticed is like this is great incarnational, but it's not necessarily written by a Christian author.
Right.
A handful
So
of these.
yeah. So and I thought I had some other ones, but maybe I held them off and we'll read them.
Point of
Later.
order on the calendar.
Yes.
That is actually Wednesday is the 27th rather than the 28th.
Oh, September 27th.
Yes.
Okay. I'll fix that.
Interesting. That's what I have written here.
I don't have the right date on here.
Because the 28th is when the annual gathering starts.
Oh, okay, good to know. Well, and there's another, a couple commercials in here just to know. Of course, the season of creation begins first Sunday in August, so that's coming soon. And then also the Theologian in Residence program, which is what we do with a lot of different churches, is going to be an environmental speaker, theological environmental. At least his book, I don't know if this is his book title and his topic for the whole series, but the book is In Search of a Course, Lessons in Life Learning and the Environmental Imagination.
Where will that be located?
You'll read more in your First Baptist Lawrence newsletter.
Okay.
But it will there will be multiple. The way we do the Theologian in Residence is usually a partnership with folks in at KU and at Haskell, but then there's always a handful of different churches, and we haven't nailed out all the dates. That's what.
Okay.
I don't know. We haven't nailed them all down yet. We have to kind of figure out exactly where they're going to be. But it's often different congregations, and sometimes there will be a kind of not churchy, kind of third space like the library or something along those lines.
Okay.
So not academic and not religious, but this other place where we could kind of put
kind of the middle ground.
Yeah. Okay. Have we discovered the soul of an octopus?
I think so.
Thank you all.
See you next month.